Hello there. Well, it is time again for Star Wars Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. Music by John Williams, orchestrated by Herb Spencer. 2M3, my favourite decoration. And this is, where the droids essentially get captured. So, you know, Jabba says, I like Captain Solo where he is. R2, look, Captain Solo. And he's still frozen in carbonite. And there's this amazing angular melody, which goes all the way through. So it's this one here. And then it continues. And then we've got sort of, basically that sort of angular thing that's sort of carried on slightly. And actually it goes pretty much all the way through up until where the droids sort of start entering the service of Jabba's sort of robot sort of guards and army and stuff like that. Or helpers, I don't know what they do. Utility, basically. And it gets all sort of rather dramatic. And it's surprisingly sort of not quite atonal, but it's surprisingly octatonic, or perhaps unsurprisingly octatonic. At the beginning, and we've got this really interesting sort of chord complex. So what I've done, like I've done before, a sort of extended reduction, really. I mean, it's not much of a reduction, but there's just so many differing things going on that if you just sort of have that, it doesn't really sort of give you a proper insight as to what's actually going on. So I've kept it as it is, really. So let's just go through the orchestration. So we've got 3 flutes, 2 oboes and a cor anglais, 2 clarinets and a bass clarinet, 2 bassoons and a contra, and then we've got 4 horns in this instance, not 6. We've then got 3 trumpets, 3 trombones, not 4, 1 tuba, 1 harp, and then Celeste sort of piano type sort of thing. I think there's a bit of piano in this. Could have a lot of it might have been cut, actually. And then we've got sort of myriad of various percussion things like chimes and bass drum, tam-tam, suspended cymbal, the usual xylophone, that sort of thing. Timpani, of course, and then falsetto strings. We've also got an ARP synth as well, which sort of comes in on the very, very bass things. And it's usually, in this particular film, kept as a sort of bass synth, basically. So that's what it is. Anyway, the first chord is an interesting one. It's an angular, it's a sort of octatonic subset of 7 different notes. And there's a lot of separation. And I think this is the main thing with this particular bit, is that there's actually quite a lot of separation between different voices. So here we've got the bass, which is just G. In octaves, very typical. We've also got the octave above on the tuba. And also not forgetting that we've also got the ARP synth. We've also got contra as well. Interestingly enough, the bassoons, not the contra, only one of them plays the G above. Otherwise, the other one is playing the D at this point as well. And then we've got a bass clarinet as well, which is doing trombone. So bassoon 2 is actually playing the A flat. And then bassoon 1 is playing that, and then we've got bass clarinet doing that in terms of what the other wind are doing to blend in with the trombone. So there's a certain amount of woodwind blend with strings and brass. Then we've got just a single pitch on the horns, which is an interesting one, actually, which then sort of doubles up the first trumpet part. And we can see, actually, what I've done is I put little, chord symbols for just each individual thing. And that's how he gets this sort of homogeneous sound, is by quite a lot of separation of things. So although it's G minor 7, flat 9, sharp 11, 13, which is basically an octatonic set without the B natural, although the B natural is actually here in the melody, we've got it separated out. So here, for example, it's just B flat 7. Then here we've just got sort of B flat 7 as well, but with that G. Horns are just on their own. Then we've got a D, just those top sort of voices. So the only sort of scrunch bit is really in this section here. which is interesting because he's got a 3/3 voicing, which is this major minor dyad, which is often in that sort of figuration 0811, but in this case it's actually all close together, with a little bit of scrunch at the top, a sort of minor third area as well. So there's quite a lot of degree of separation, but when you put it all in the harp, in the middle area, we've got all of that sort of doubling this area. So we've got the G, but then we've got the D, B flat, D, F, A flat, but then C sharp and E as well. So we've got sort of really interesting octatonic based chord, which is separated out. Notice also the voicing here. It's quite a wide space between the lowest note and the top note of that. And also we've got the 7th in there, we've got the 3rd, and we've got the 5th as well of that particular chord. So yeah, it's quite an interesting voicing in terms of what it might have looked like on the sketch, which I don't have access to, so I don't know what it would have been. So I'm not sure how much Herb did and how much John Williams did in this. Usually it's a sort of a bit of a mix of both, depends on the cue sometimes. But we've got this sort of lovely angular octatonic melody that comes in over the top of what's going on. So we've got this sort of very stable type of harmonic sound, a pedal going all the way through. And the melody is just in one instrument, it's not anywhere else, there's nothing else doubling it. It comes in very clearly, hence all the violins are playing the sort of the top bit. So I'm doing a little bit of orchestration as we go along as well. But yeah, sort of really nice, beautiful angular melody. And then after that, as the action sort of goes on into what 3PO's saying, he says, R2, look, Captain Celerin, he's still frozen in carbonite. And there's this sort of ominous sound here with interesting chords, actually, because we go from a sort of octatonic, loosely G-based thing, just simply because there's a G pedal there, and it's sort of like that sort of thing. We're actually going to some more augmented territory. Like that, sort of C minor 9 with a flat 5. So interesting sort of a bit of sort of almost treading water, really, but it's quite a dark sound because of all the low notes of the brass at that particular time. And then we've got the melody in this case with the horns, and then we go into the close-up of Hahn, and again it's similar to the sound that we had there. In this case, actually, it's just B minor with a major 7th, like that. Notice also what I find interesting here is that we've got quite a clear bass line. It's quite Debussy-esque in some ways. So we've only got really the tuba doing the B. There's nothing else in the trombones playing the B. There's nothing in the horns playing a B. There's a harp playing the B, and some timpani, and that's it. There's nothing else. Which is quite an unusual type of sound, really, in some ways. And we've got no strings at all in this bit, so it's a very sort of brass-heavy chord at that point, with the harp just sort of adding in a bit of articulation to it. Notice that the 4 horns are just divided with the D and the F sharp at that point. So an interesting voicing as well. So we've got that voicing with the that there. Whoops, in edit mode. Keep doing that. When will I ever learn? Never is the case. And eventually that goes into basically the same chord, but with a flat 6, flat 13, with that G here. Yeah, and then a sort of divergent progression, so things going down, something else going up as well, which is another sort of common thing as well. Especially when he wants a little bit of a sort of swell, and we'll notice that there's a bit of suspended cymbal at that time, although I can't actually hear it at all on the recording, but there we go. Certainly not on the film itself. So then we get into a shift to a sort of a C sharp wrong note bass with a sort of E minor with a flat 6. Don't know why it says 6B. I think I think I meant flat 6. So WBN just means wrong note bass. So it really is very discordant at that point, and surprisingly so actually. We've also got C against the C sharp as well, and that goes from this particular area, so just on the piano, that's really discordant because we've got D major chords in the horn, and then we've got basically sort of D flat aug with a flat 6 as well, which is really interesting. Like that. So it's, if you put them all together, it's really, really discordant. I mean, of course, they're not all together. They're sort of separated out with these sort of unison strings, which is a typical device. What isn't typical is the mixed articulation of the violin. So we got some tremolo and then some slurring, which is a sort of interesting one. It's quite, again, quite Debussy-esque. And actually, we've got pizzicato in the cello. And then when it's all put together, and we can clearly hear the horns actually as they go into their sort of D major bit at that point as well, which is really interesting. Also plus bassoon and contra on the pedal as well. What's interesting is that if you took away the G sharp from all of that, we actually get, interestingly, what's going on there? Why have I written F sharp A? I mean, it's an F sharp, but maybe I'm just doing something. Yeah, there we go. That's better. C sharp D, F sharp A, B flat. So we've got all of those notes, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but also with the F as well. So I think I've just missed out the F. So we've actually got a hexatonic chord, but suddenly that G sharp is sort of disturbing it as well. So we end up with a sort of very unusual chord. I think it's 721 or something sort of slightly outrageous. And then it goes into a sort of rather more simplistic B flat minor with a major 7. That's 419 that's what it is, which can often be a nice link because it has that sort of augmented feel to it, basically that chord, and then into a sort of typical flat 6 type of area as well. So but it is all sort of rather discordant, and it gets sort of slightly dark. So interestingly enough, the bass line doesn't descend, it ascends like that before it goes back to sort of C sharp or C sharp minor. So we go in from these sort of unison strings through various normal sort of chords, except for that sort of really weird D flat aug flat 6 chord, and sort of hexatonic type of area, and then immediately into our minor with a major 7th type area as well, which he continues with. So there's another bit here. So if you look at the harp, like that, we've got C sharp minor with a major 7th in that bit. Notice that the 7th is only in the harp. It's something that he does very much in Return of the Jedi. I've noticed it in the Q Brother and Sister, for example, a bit later on, where the 7th isn't present anywhere else apart from a harp, and it's not doubled anywhere else. So it just get that little hint of sort of added sort of extension, basically. Although here, of course, it is actually in the wind at that point. So flutes and oboes all the top, clarinets there, and then bass clarinet and bassoon at that point. So we go from C sharp minor major 7 into a nice chromatic mediant shift, which is lovely. into second inversion as well, because that's the nearest available sort of notes that you can go to. Then into a sort of B minor area, which is all harmonic minor, basically. That on its own, sort of interesting one. Why have I got suddenly rests appearing when I've hidden them all? I don't know. But anyway, that then is repeated. So that material is repeated anyway. From here, slightly differently, then it's repeated exactly. But stopped and cut short where they sort of start entering, where they see all these droids being tortured. With more chromatic mediants. Then we have this dyadic harmony. Like that. And that kind of finishes it. There's little bits of stuff. Again, it's actually very, very discordant because you've got really weird things. There's, again, quite a lot of separation here. We've got our basic B pedal, which goes all the way through. So it gives it, you know, a hint of tonality. And we've also got B minor right at the beginning as well, which is probably worth actually putting in. I think it's because it was carrying over from the previous line or previous page there. So we've still got B minor. But if I play it, then we've also got C with a flat 6, but we've also got C minor with a sharp 4. So we've got really weird discordant sort of stuff going on, and all sort of separated out with different instruments as well. So we've got C minor sharp 4 here, which is just played on the clarinet. Like that. But then we've also got C with a flat 6, which is played by the harp here. So when it's all put together on the piano, it sounds really funny. Yeah. So it sounds very, very sort of exotic as well. So, yeah. It still feels sort of B area, I suppose, even with all of that stuff going on. And then it goes into a sort of G minor area with a really extraordinary sort of chord. So if we build it back up. So we've got G minor with the major 7th. Then we've also got a sharp 11 and also a normal 13. Which is actually very similar to the chord that we had right at the very, very beginning. This one was G minor 7, flat 9, sharp 11, 13. That one, G minor major 7, sharp 11, normal 13. Yeah, it's just a lovely cue that, again, sort of typifies lots of different aspects of Williams's work. We've got things like little bits of wrong note bass. We've got shifts from an octatonic area into an augmented area, which is completely different from all of that diminished stuff. We've got unison strings. We've got gesture. We've got angular melodies. We've got a bit of filigree going on over the top between piano and the wind. We've got block chordal harmony in the horns. We've got minor chords with major 7ths. We've got things that disturb the underlying harmony. We've got separation of chordal function to a large degree. Different instrument groups, different sort of timbres. And we've also got sort of, you know, the cheeky sort of pizzicato stuff that goes on. Little bits of percussion which add to the sort of exotic nature of everything. And little fanfare sort of, dramatic, rhythmic work. And we've got dyads as well. We've even got our little 3/3. So in a sense, it's a sort of little miniature exposé of John Williams' style in general, especially because there's actually quite a lot of talking going on in this bit, but there's a surprising amount of stuff that's actually going on. Fine that there's sort of just chords, but we've got slow moving things which go all the way throughout, and then it leads us on into what's going on. So yeah, another sort of short cue, but a really fascinating one, filled with gestural bits of material. But there's a real sort of homogeneity about the whole thing, you know, particularly the sort of angular melody which grows into second bit, and then these sort of quavers which come from there, like that, and that goes all the way through. And then it goes again. And then suddenly we've got that little block as well. And then this wonderful sort of, like that, bit right at the end, which is so memorable. Just another fantastic piece. So that's all for now, folks. That's it. I will look forward to bringing you the rest of it very soon. Bye for now.